Okay, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Nahmaduhu wa nusalli ala rasulihil kareem, amma ba'd. So here we are discussing the biography of Nizam al-Mulk Tusi. We talked about his background, his brief life history, and also we talked about his positions that he had, and also we talked about his major works. We discussed the Siyasat Namah. So most probably we talked about him, who he was, and how did he became the wazir, the prime minister of a country. So there is of course, there is a gong in his country. There is a Khalifa and king in his country, but he is his role as a prime minister. So most probably today what we are going to talk about is actually the political economic ideas. So I would say that as a prime minister, he was not only the economist, he was also the politic. He was also the politician who actually administered the entire nation. And also we talked about how he was able to bring the education sector, and he was able to become successful. He brought that curriculum is called Darse Nizami. Until today, many people in subcontinent still follow, even in Southeast Asia also they follow this syllabus in Pundo. So this is all actually started by Nizam al-Mulk Tusi. So now we are going to talk about his economic ideas, and I have a lot to cover. So what I do, I will give you the overview, the overall perspective was of his contribution. Then inshallah we will look into slide by slide. So when it comes to administrative and economic outlook, so this is all what I am telling you. It is not only that he wrote, because when it comes to other scholars, for example, when we talk about Ibn Hazm, or when we talk about Abu Ubaid, so most probably yes, they were the scholars, and then they wrote the book. But when it comes to Nizam al-Mulk, he was not only the scholar, he was also the politician. So because he was the prime minister of the country. So so whatever that we are going to discuss, it is not that only he suggested in his book Siyasa Nama, but he also implemented it. The one we are seeing now, we are going to learn now, something that already was in action. He manifested into the action. So that is the most important part that we have to remember. It is not just theory. These are the practices that he was able to bring. So when we talk about his administrative and economic outlook, he wanted to bring the nature and the basis of the government or the state. So when it comes to state, he conceived as a moral institution, because he wanted to make sure that the institute is founded on the values and principles of Islam. It's not just state. It has to come with values and principles, like I said before, which actually later translate the theories into pragmatism. So for example, when it comes to principle of maslaha in administration, for example, he he of course, as a prime minister, he has to go through many projects. There are some short-term projects, some of them is a long-term gains. So now when it comes to conflict between the short-term gain and the moral value, he always choose the moral value, and then he go for the long-term gain. Because sometimes it is possible that you go for short-term gain and then you collect lots and lots of taxes. but he wanted to go with maslaha. He never chose the short-term gain because he wanted to safeguard and those that he had to serve. That is the most important thing. Then when it comes to safeguarding welfare and productivity and efficiency, he had written a lot, but at the same time he had this strictness and discipline. When it comes to human interest, there must be discipline, must be unconditionally accompanied. That is more important in his administration. When it comes to the satisfaction of basic need, Nizam al-Mulk Tusi, he also organized free kitchens. I think this is the concept of free kitchen. Today we have open houses. Those days in his administration, he wanted to make sure that the people should have plentiful of food. He said that your plates must be food, plentiful, handful. So he organized free kitchens for the needy and the poor. This is all started, 1,000 years ago. Maybe today, if someone following, it's all because of him, because he started those days. Administration. We are talking about administration. We are not talking about, someone wanted to give hadiah for once. Someone wanted to help for once. Someone call everybody for once. No, this is the administration we are talking about, which means that it has to run every single day, at least twice a day. It has to go through the whole year, right? That's the reason why he was against hoarding, because if someone is hoarding, should be punished according to him, because he wanted to bring the market should be controlled in the interest of the consumer. It has to be interest of the consumer, not in the interest of the capitalist. Also, when it comes to a need for cautious and measures, the economic measures, there is also at the same time, yes, he is uh, quite concerned with the subject, the subject's values and principles. At the same time, he has to also run his state. So now, when it comes to army, for example, most of the time people think that they are spending a lot to the army, so why don't you reduce the army so that you can reduce the expenses, so that you can pay more to the poor and needy. So this is kind of it seems like a very good idea, because you reduce the army, you reduce the cost, and you spend and you supply more food to the poor. But he disagree with that kind of idea, because he knew that if you reduce the army, if once you start um, putting this, you wanted to measure the economy, and you wanted to reduce the strength of the army, what happens that the army is because especially in his time, you need to know it is the time of the war zone, war. So when you reduce the number of the army, definitely they are the one who most of the time brings the land, and also they are the one who brings the ghanima, what we call is the boots to the country. They are the one who actually give you the security. So because of them, there you are actually living harmoniously. Today we have the United Nations, so that if there is a problem, we go there and we complain about these borders and issues. So there is a United Nation comes, and they become uh, it's like they become the moderator for solving these kind of issues. Today we have it, so we should be happy about it. If not, just imagine a world and there is no moderator. Every country will fight against each other. They will take their land unethically, unconditionally. They will take it and then they will exploit it, and then there will be war all the time. Today we are happy with our own place within the limitation of the border. That's because there is a system that we are following. In fact, even in the sea, in the ocean also, we have the limitation of the border. We say this is the Malaysian border of the sea, and then you have the international border, right? So when speaking of ocean, so we need to also pray for those who lost their lives in Indonesia recently. I think you know that what happened to that, the tank, the water, the thing went inside and then they were not able to come out. I think around more than 50 people, they died after 3 days. So our condolences. They are actually the army. They are also armies. I think they went there for practice. To my knowledge, it shows that uh, the, the 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 vehicle. I mean the water. Oh, what do you call it? I forgot the name. What is it? What is it? What do you call it? Anyone? It is not a shape. it is it is not a shape. It's something that goes inside the water.
Submarine.
Submarine. Thank you, Afnan. Okay, submarine. Thank you. Suddenly it is hidden. I was not able to think. So the submarine, to my knowledge, it was actually given to Indonesia 1981. So you calculate. It's a 40 years old submarine. So that's not the case. You don't have to buy submarine every year, and if you know the cost, the price of the submarine, then you will know that you will do the calculation. It's not like that I buy a car or something. So 40 years is still okay, but it could be an accident, or they say that it went deep inside. It almost went inside, I think, more than 10 to 11 kilometer inside. And then they said, I'm not sure about the distance, but they said that they went to a place whereby even the creatures inside the ocean in that particular place cannot see each other. You need to know that the darkness is not when you are at night. The real darkness, because at night at least you will have the light of the stars, even though you are in the middle of the night, but still you have the lights. It comes from the sky. You will see that the stars or the moon, there is a kind of light you can identify yourself each other. But when you are deep in the sea, and then when you are like 10 kilometers down, it is what it is called volume. I think I remember when I heard this news, I remember that Allah even himself talk about, when he talk about bahr, when he talk about the ocean, he says, he used the word zulum. It's dark, it's too dark. You go deep inside, you will see too dark. So the darkness is like, you cannot see anything, that kind of darkness. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept their deeds, and then make sure that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help those families, and we pray for them. It's really a condolence. The whole country, Indonesia, is actually they are really very sad about this incident. They are the army. Around more than 50 people, they passed away. So we pray for them. Yeah. So just talking about the army, then I remember what's happening today. So now coming back to Nizam al-Mulk Tusi. So he was actually very particular about the army. He said he didn't want to reduce the number, because once you reduce, definitely you will lose the security, and then you will have so many other problems. But he has another way of reducing the expenses. This is something smart. Um, when it comes to optimal employment of labor versus national security, he says that unnecessary multiplication of posts must be stopped. See, On the one hand, he didn't want to reduce the army, the number of the army, because he understand the importance of the people who actually safeguard the country and then who brings the revenue to the country. At the same time, inside the country, local country, which is actually domestic. The other thing is the foreign, this is the domestic. When it comes to domestic administration, he doesn't want multiplication of the post and officers, because they will become burden to the treasury, because it will be against efficiency, because you have to pay them. So he wanted to reduce that kind of post, because you know that there will be so many post, royal post, there will be so many so many vacancies for this kind of posts, and then people apply for it. They basically speaking, they don't do anything. It's just holding the name of the post, and then they will be getting their salary every month. This is unnecessary according to Nizam al-Mulk. The another thing is socio-economic equality. Also, he wanted to make sure that this a large scale of distribution, whether it is the alms, zakat, or hadiyah or sadaqah, it has to be equally distributed to the people, irrespective of status or power, shall receive equal opportunities. This is what, because it is the time that it was expanding, and he himself coming from Khorasan, so he doesn't want that Arab should take more and non-Arabs should take less. He was against of it. He said everybody is equal, right? So that is quite important thing that he meant. And then when it comes to significance of the need for a just tax system, this is something that he wanted to bring and talk about it. In fact, there was an event. I mean, there is a story that I can give you this. I can tell you. He narrated this in his book. He wanted to go for just tax system, and he brings this story that happened to him when the Sultan, the Sultan named Al-Parsalan, yeah. When Al-Parsalan wanted to do something against the Byzantine Empire, because he wanted to expedite, he wanted to go against Byzantine Empire, but now he wanted wealth, because it's not that cheap, because it's very expensive to go for war. So in order to go for war, you need to prepare the army, and then you need to prepare everything, the arrangement and all. It costs you wealth. It costs everything, right? It costs fortune. So now what Al-Parsalan wanted to do, he wanted to take people's tax in advance. For example, he wanted to tell people that you pay your tax in advance, like next year you pay now, because I want to use that money and I wanted to go against Byzantine Empire. I want to do this war. I wanted to fight against him. So at the same time, what happened, that the similar period, there was a plague in Murf. Murf is the place. There was a plague, and like what was happening today, like the pandemic, which was taking heavy toll of lives. Heavy, many people was dying. So the Sultan wanted to say to everybody, all his administrators, saying that neither the army nor money, because neither the army or money could prevent the death, because death has to happen. But if you death has to happen. But if I have to succeed, I need your money in advance. But when Prime Minister Nizam al-Mulk Tusi was listening to his plan, and he respectfully replied to the Sultan, saying that yes, I agree with you. Your army or money cannot stop plague, but there is something that can stop plague. You know what is it? He said, he respectfully replied that justice and benevolence, al-adl wal-ihsan. Justice and benevolence could eradicate, could eradicate this pandemic. I think this is true, because today you see, even we have these vaccines going on, people, and there are so many countries, even right now, back in India, it's really happening something that, which never happened in the history of India. People are dying. There is no, there is not enough hospitals, even though, in fact, when the first wave come, and then the death roll stopped, and then they actually wanted to say that we have succeeded in corona, we have saved our country. They even celebrated, the current ruling party, they celebrated that, we have won against the coronavirus. But look what's happening now. The second wave, it's seriously damaging the entire nation. It's going to be, I think, the India is going to be number one in terms of damage. I think right now it is US and Brazil, and then India in number three. So basically, I think probably the India might go first, because now there is not enough oxygen. Usually, a small institute, a small factory will create 7 to 10 cylinders. Now the government asking them to create 700 cylinders, from 7 to 700 cylinders to create, but it's impossible. But this is the requirement now, for now. So you can see that. So now, yeah, so I agree with Nizam al-Mulk Tusi. When there is a pandemic, definitely the vaccine or the money is not going to be helping, but the justice and benevolence, ihsan, could stop this. That's why the people should come together and help each other. This is how, because you see, the state, one state might keep all the oxygens, but other state, they don't have anything. This is what's happening in India. There is a state, they are out of stock. The other state, they keep it, but they don't want to release it, because they say we want to use it for our own people. So this kind of things are happening, and the government is not capable of controlling this. The government is becoming, in a word, I can say that, inactive. I mean, not possible. The government cannot handle this. It's been mishandled, of course. At the same time, it cannot. This kind of pandemic is difficult, because they are not ready for it. Because they are not ready for it means they never think of it. It's coming, and they never do it, because they are not doing it for the people. This is the problem. When there is a government, they are not for the people. They are just for some ideology. They are just for, to make sure that their country is first in everything. They just want to be, get the first rank among the other nations. But if they are not working for their people, and this is what happened. So take India as an example. Indian government is not for people. Indian government is for their own politics. They have their own issues among them. So this is what they are always discussing about it. Most of the time, they discuss about, unnecessary things. They talk about the neighboring countries. They wanted to go war against them, especially the Muslim countries, and then they always criticize Muslims back in India. These are the issues. These are the only problems they've been discussing all over last 5 to 10 years. They are not actually working for people. And today it is crystal clear that the government says we are not capable of handling this, because they are not ready, because uh, they didn't work on infrastructure for the people. This is a problem, right? So that's the thing. So, like, I'm just continuing the story. Nizam al-Mulk, respectfully, he stood up and he said, only justice and benevolence can eradicate this pandemic. And then this is where he is actually narrating a story to the Sultan in his kingdom. He said that, I have read in the books, there was a king, and the king wanted to know what is the exact position in his treasury. Nobody knew his intention, so he asked some of them to go, ministers. He asked some ministers to go and investigate carefully and verify the treasury, how much available, how much is the balance. So they came back and then they told, this is how much we have in the treasury. Then he said, then the king thanked God, and then he called everybody, and then he said in front of the people, he said, I thank God because we have everything, our treasury is full. He said this, our treasury is full, so the weakest person is not oppressed. Meaning to say, even though the the uh, the the treasury was not full as he claimed, but he wanted to give this positive attitude to the people. He said that, do not worry, we have enough things in our treasury, so you be happy and you do your work. So what happened that because of this positive aspect of the king, people were encouraged to do good things, and then they keep on working and working, and then they were able to pay taxes. They didn't hide anything from the government. When they come to know the government is not having money, the government is a lack of funds, then what happened that definitely the government will look into the rich people. The government will take money from the rich people. I tell you, this thing happened in many countries. Recently, also a small country beside my country, that country is actually having this issue. The government has no money at all. You know what they did? They started looking into rich people, and then they go into their bank balance, they go into their properties, and then they started, collecting and then putting them in jail and then take all their money. Some of them even the government is really strange, and also it's scary. The government is working with mafia, the goons, and they ask the mafia to kidnap those rich people and then ask for the ransom. Can you believe this? Can you believe a government is doing this? A government saying that, okay, if you give 10 million US dollar, then I will let you go. With the full support of government, the mafia is doing. That's because the government needed money. If this is what happened in a country, then what happened that the people will be afraid of doing business, and then they will be keeping their money, they won't pay taxes, and because of that, the government will never come back to normal. But according to the story, what Nizam al-Mulk narrated, he said that the king said that I thank God and my treasury is full, so the weakest people will not be oppressed. So that what happened, the people got encouraged and they started working, and then the treasury became full. So when Al-Barsalan learned this story from Nizam al-Mulk, and he actually understood the fact that he should not go with the war, especially during the pandemic. Because when he go to war, definitely he has to spend more. So Nizam al-Mulk made Al-Barsalan, the Sultan Al-Barsalan, realize that, okay, you stay home. This is the time you have to be with your people. So these are the good stories, yeah. So I think someone can make movies out of it, yeah. So any one of you want to make movies in future, here is the story. All right, go ahead and take it. So and then okay, the next one is also very important. I wanted to give you this. This is one of the most important idea that I feel, because according to Nizam al-Mulk, there are some land policies, yeah. So before I talk to you about the land policy, I want you to learn what exactly feudalism. I think some of you may know feudalism, right? Feudal. Feudalism is actually maybe you have seen some series or movies, I think in old time, there will be a lord. Have you seen people called a lord, my lord? And then there is also people called vassals and fiefs. So these are the terms, if you have seen it in some places, like in movies and series. These are the people, actually, they are the responsible for certain region. They are the owner of certain land, and their job is to give. There is a king. For definitely, there is a king. Under the kingdom, there will be lords, like Lords of the Ring. Yeah, so there will be lords, and these lords, their job is to give protection to certain land, and then the people has to pay them. So they are the owner. So basically they become the owner of those land, and then whatever comes from that land should go to the lord. And then there are some other people like vassals. The vassals, they are the one, actually, uh, they are the one, who brings the mutual obligation to a lord or to a monarch. So there are so many postings like this, I think, if you remember. So now when we are talking about the similar concept in Muslim history. So back then, similarly, if you remember last time I talked to you about when it comes to Abu Ubaid, I think I told you this, if you remember. Iqta Dari. Military personals will be given, were given the land as a gift. When they go and conquer some lands, the lands will be given back to military, given back to those personals, and then they will use that land, and they will collect the taxes for them. Okay, here Nizam al-Mulk wanted to bring a revise. He wanted to bring a complete, switch in this land policies. What he was doing, um, he considered, responsible for developing, and also he wanted to bring the political structure under the Seljuk Empire. What he did was, you know, first of all, he brought this lordship into term. This thing never happened before. I tell you why he has done it. He said the lordship cannot be given forever. It has to be given on term. So between 2 to 3 years only. After 2 to 3 years, the land will have a different lord. This is number one. Number two, these lords, the one who has these lands, the regions, they are under, because they were independent before Nizam al-Mulk. They were independent. They will be, they will be doing it. They will be collecting the money, and then they will be doing their own. But they were independent. But this is something that Al-Parsalan, he liked it, this idea, because he wanted to bring all those lots under the king. So he say all of them comes under the king. So the king and the feudatories and the governors set over their head, or like the gods to the subjects, as the king is to others. So this is something like, what Abraham Lincoln was doing, bringing all those unions under one United States of America, right? So this is what Nizam al-Mulk wanted to do. He wanted to bring all those lots under the king, and then the king is the one who will have the final word, and the king also will send murshid, or will send some people, some administrators, to check what's happening in that particular region, right? So this land ownership was changed during Nizam al-Mulk period To him, it was essential to bring both the land and the subject under the central authority of the king. This is very important. Under the central authority of the king. So that what happened, if you do that, the subject will be happier. Because why? Because in a certain region you will have a different sort of lord. In certain region he might be very strict, he might be taking a lot of money from you. We don't know, because because there are so many lots. There's millions of lots. So now when it comes to under one king, centralized by the king, then actually the people will be happy. That was the reason why he brought this thing under the king. Also, there is another thing that we wanted to learn from his method, which is actually military and prime ministership. So you see, look at his idea that he doesn't want military to form its own government. Like I told you previously, look at what exactly happening today in Myanmar, some other countries, right? Military overthrow the democracy. So now the military took over, and then the military is showing the power because they have the weapons, and then the democracy leaders were not able to do anything. This is something not good. It happened last time in Egypt. It's happening all the time in so many countries. Recently, it's happening in Myanmar. So people are suffering because of that. You know how many hundreds of them died. They just kill on the road. You know, if someone comes in the motorbike, the military goes and just kill them, murder them in the daylight, and then throw the body somewhere and then go. This is happening because when you give this this authority to the military, you know, they can do anything they want. They will become merciless. They will abuse it. They will abuse, definitely, because this is what actually the shaitan wants. Everybody, when they have the power, the shaitan wants to abuse it, and then people will abuse the power. People have the power will abuse. When they have the gun, they want you to submit your will. If you don't submit and you keep on protesting, it gives them the anger. That anger will convert into abuse. It happens everywhere. You see, for example, in America, when people protest for that, that Black American lives matter, right? Black life matter. So these are the things people are protesting, but still the white supremacy is there, and it makes them angry when the protests going like this, because they have the gun. They don't speak justice. They don't even speak. Only their guns will speak. So this is also something that we can learn from Nizam al-Mulk. He wanted this lordship and military, everything should come under one centralized king. In a way that it is actually under the prime ministership. This is also something, he wanted to bring under the central king, but of course under the central king, the next spokesperson is actually the prime minister. So in a way, it comes under the prime ministers as well. So I think if it rings bell, maybe some of you already understand what I'm trying to tell. It could happen to our own country. It's actually happening also happened in the past. The power of king, patriot, and the power of monarch, and the power of prime minister. I think somehow you can understand the relationship. So this is all comes under this feudalism. So basically speaking, Nizam al-Mulk's feudal theory takes away much of the powers from the hands of the feudal lords, which they enjoyed. For instance, as in Western feudalism. In Western feudalism, this is what actually happened. They've been enjoying, and then you can see so many series and web series are there talking about this. Yeah, so this is one of the most important contribution of Nizam al-Mulk Tusi that he brought. Other than this, we have, he talks about the attributes of head and state. He also talks about the nature, role, and control of public servants. He also talks about the attributes of muhtazim, how it should be. He also the person who actually introduced the public complaints court. So right now we have the consumer court, right? So this is all public complaints. I think he started it a long time ago, 1,000 years ago. Okay, finally, again, there is also a misconception. Like last time we talked about Ibn Hazm. The misconception is of, whether it is Nizam al-Mulk was actually called by some people as a Persian nationalist. Even if you go to Iran today, Nizam al-Mulk is a nationalist, a father of the nationalism. But not necessarily it is true, because there was no indication that he wanted to make Persia as a nation. No, he said he wanted to bring everything under one head, one king, and whatever that he was doing, he was actually following the Islamic principles and values, not Persian principles and values. Even though Persian Empire was there before Islam, but he didn't follow the Persian Empire imperialism. He followed Islamic values and principles. So I don't think that it would be fair to call him as a Persian nationalist. He's a Muslim. He's a Muslim, great Muslim scholar, and also a politician. Okay, then. So I think that's all from me. I think now you can see these slides. You can go through these slides, economic ideas, the principle of maslaha, public interest. Yeah, we talked about the short-term gains and the long-term gains. We talked about this welfare, productivity, and efficiency, and then we talked about the national stability. We talked about the food should be plentiful. Yeah. Then we also talked about this cautious economic measurement, because he wanted to reduce, right, the military. He doesn't want to reduce the military, but he wanted to reduce the optimal employment of labor, which is actually the post and officers, the administrative officers. He doesn't want to pay salary for nothing. Yeah. And also we talked about the socio-economic equality. Everyone should get the fair distribution, the just tax system. We talked about it. We give you the event of Sultan al-Paslan against the Byzantine, and the plague, the pandemic in MERV. I think this is one of the good takeaway for you, especially today. We are also facing the pandemic, so this is one of the good takeaway for you. It happened 1,000 years ago, and how he handled it. So this is the right time that we need to stand for the solidarity, our own country's own solidarity, rather than thinking about the foreign investment or foreign agenda. We need to think about the local, because there are so many people still losing their job, and for definitely the government should take care of it. The land policies, I told you, is the most important point of Nizam al-Mulk. We talked about this iqtidari, feudalism, right? So you can look into this slide and then learn the Arabic word as well. Iqtidari, ra'iyah means vassals. Yeah, muqta means feudatories, or you can call lords. Yeah, we also talked about this, and then attributes of the head of state. The head of the state must be a comely appearance, a pleasing disposition, integrity, manliness, daring skill in horsemanship, knowledge of and expertise in the use of various kinds of arms, and accomplishment in different arts, pity and mercy upon the creation of God, strictness in the performance of promises, sound faith and true belief, devotion to the worship of God, and the practice of such virtuous deeds as praying in the night. So these are the qualities of and attributes of the head. and also control of public servants. Nizam al-Mulk believed that the head of state, as a condition in the preceding section, must necessarily be supported by an equally strong supporting set of public servant. Yeah. Also attributes of muhtasib, also focusing on the market of economy itself. So this is all, muhtasib is already there, and of course, inshallah, when it comes to Ibn Taymiyyah, we will actually discuss more on ihtisab. Yeah, but here he also talk about heavy responsibility or to be shouldered, necessitating inherent qualities of trustworthiness, accountability, reliability, and piety. Then those to be appointed into the post of muhtasib must necessarily be men of high integrity. Okay. Then he, as I told you, he also brought this public complaints court. Was very much impressed and partly inspired by the ancient Persian king's method of administration of justice. I think this is one takeaway. Actually, this public complaints court also was being used in ancient Persian kings. So actually, he took the good thing. He didn't follow entirely the Persianide politics, but wherever the good things are there, you should know how to take it. You cannot simply wait until it has to happen in Islam. If it has already happened even before Islam, if it is a good way of doing, take it. He did that. This public complaints code was there in the Persian king's method of administration. So he took it from there and then he Islamized it. This is where the concept of Islamization started by Nizam al-Mulk. Okay, this is where we talked lastly, correcting the misconception of Nizam al-Mulk as a Persian nationalist, right? Um, even though it looks like he followed the Persian nationalism, but not necessarily, because it must be noted he was a devout Muslim statesman with a firm Islamic conviction. So he followed the Islamic values and principles. Okay, then, so that's all from me.